Hello everybody and welcome to our Tim at 10 webinar. Today is Wednesday, October 28th, 2020. I hope everyone is doing well and you are staying warm. I don't know where you're at in the state or around the country, but I am here in East Texas and it is very, very cold and wet and yucky today. But you know what? I'm happy about it. I actually really enjoy the cold weather, and I'm a summer guy and I love the water, but I also really enjoy cold weather as well. So I'm kind of enjoying this little hint of winter that we're experiencing right now. I hope everyone is doing well and you are staying positive and optimistic during this difficult time. We are, almost 9 months into dealing with our pandemic, and I applaud all of you for staying afloat and hanging in there and making the best of our situation. Today's webinar is going to be a non-pandemic webinar, a non-COVID related webinar. Yay! I love it when we get to talk about things that are not related to the pandemic. But today is a really, really important topic, and I'm so happy that you are all here, and I see everyone joining and hopping on board, and so that's awesome. But today we're going to talk about performance improvement plans and how to handle situations when your employees are not meeting your expectations. And of course, the Texas Workforce Commission and the United States Department of Labor, there is a burden on the employer to make sure that the employee understands the expectations of the job and that you are making every effort to save their job. So it is up to the employer to make sure that you put plans and processes in place so that your employees are successful. Now, the ultimate goal here is that for you to recruit good quality people, hire the right person for the job, hire people that have the same mission, the same values as you, and to be able to orientate these people, coach these people, and set them up for success. And the ultimate goal is that your employees will meet your expectations, do a fabulous job, and have a long relationship. Of course, the goal that we always shoot for is to hire to retire, not hire to fire, right? So that's the ultimate goal. But as many of you are aware, from time to time, employees may not be meeting your expectations. So it is up to you to make every effort to try to save their job. Now, anytime you have an employee that's not meeting your expectation, the very first thing I always encourage you to look at, is this a performance issue or is this a training issue? All right, so I really want you to look at the situation, look at the facts, and decide, is this a performance issue or is this a training issue? So that employee that is not meeting your expectations, do they need additional training and additional coaching, more guidance from their leadership, or are they just simply being insubordinate? They know what the expectations are, they're just not doing it, all right? Now, in my experience, what I have learned is that 9 times out of 10, when you have an employee that's not meeting your expectations, it's a training issue, all right? Very seldom are they just being insubordinate, all right? That does happen, and we'll talk about that, but most of the time it's the additional training. The next thing that I encourage you to look at when you have an employee that's not meeting your expectations is, where is their passion, all right? Do they need to be reconnected with their passion and purpose? Everybody that works in the early education after-school industry, we are here for a reason, all right? Nobody is here because of the big bucks and the giant bonuses that we get. It's not about the money, it's not about the benefits. There is other reasons why we work in this industry. It's that passion, it's that purpose, it's that you want to make a difference in the community. So a lot of times what we see when you have an employee that's not meeting your expectations, they've kind of become the lost sheep. and they have lost their way, and they have forgotten why they do what they do. That happens to all of us. I mean, everyone that's on this webinar right now, we become a lost sheep every once in a while, and we got to find that way to come back. All right. So, you know, the second thing I ask you to look at when you have an employee that's not meeting your expectations, do we need to focus on reconnecting them with their passion? All right. And what we have learned from this is that when people are passionate about the job that they do, when this is no longer a job, it's a purpose, all right? And when that passion is alive, people are more willing to meet the expectations, all right? This year, 2020, has been a fantastic example of this. Those employees that have stayed on the job, that have gone into that classroom wearing those masks, following your enhanced health practices, doing whatever it takes to maintain a healthy environment, those people have remained passionate about caring and educating our young children, and we applaud all of them. And we've talked in so many previous webinars about, you know, during the pandemic, we have definitely seen some people's true colors, all right? Some of those true colors were not pretty. But some of them have been absolutely amazing. And I'm willing to bet that those people that have hung with you and done whatever it took, they're exceeding expectations, all right? So, you know, again, you know, when you're working with your people, is this a training issue or is this a performance issue? Decide that. And then do we need to reconnect them with their passion? Do we need to remind them of why they work here? So those are the first two things that we're going to look at. There are a couple of documents that I'm going to refer you to during today's webinar, and I have posted all of these documents on our website, timthetrainer.com. Most of you are very familiar with our website, but if you go to the Documents tab on our website, I have a sample performance improvement plan that I'm going to go over today. If you aren't able to download that right now, it's okay, all right? You can just kind of listen and take notes. And you can create your own format, all right? You don't have to use what I am going to go over today. You can create your own format. I'm just going to encourage you that you know, the elements that I have in place here, you know, you put this in your plan, all right? We're going to talk about that, and I'm also going to talk to you about what I call a staff communication form that's also on my website under Documents, and then also a professional development worksheet. All three of those documents we're going to mention today, all right? And again, they're all on my website under Documents. So, let's say, for example, you have an employee that is not meeting your expectations. First off, like I said earlier, it's very important to Texas Workforce Commission that you make every effort to save that employee's job, all right? And if you do have to terminate that employee or they leave you and they file for unemployment, that's going to be one of the very first things that Texas Workforce Commission is going to look at. What did the employer do to try to save that person's job? All right, and you're going to need to provide evidence of that. The other thing that Texas Workforce Commission is going to look at, did the employee know that their job was in jeopardy? And it is up to you to prove that that employee was aware that their job was in jeopardy. All right. Now, everyone, you know, that has participated in my past webinars, y'all know how this works. At the end of today's webinar, you're going to have the opportunity to complete an online worksheet and receive a certificate of completion for 1 hour of instructor-led training if you're watching this live. All right. And so, you know, one of the questions that you're going to see on your online worksheet today is, you know, what is the golden rule with documentation? Well, the golden rule with documentation, if it's not written down, it didn't happen. All right? So not just when we're talking about employee performance, but basically anything that's happening in your building, in your business, if it's not written down, it didn't happen. I'm going to refer you to a webinar I did a couple of months ago on documentation tips. All right, so if you haven't watched that webinar, I encourage you to go back and watch that one. You can find it on my website under online trainings. All right, so you're going to make sure you've got good documentation of this employee's performance. All right, so if you look at the sample performance improvement plan that I have on my website, it's pretty simple. All right. But right off the bat, you're going to notice that I call it a performance improvement plan. I don't call it a write-up, all right? So, you know, a lot of times the employer will say, well, I'm going to write you up for this behavior. And, you know, that sounds so negative. It sounds like we're just trying to get rid of them, right? And even, you know, whenever you hear write-up, it just has that negative tone, all right? So I like to use a more optimistic and positive approach to this, and so we're going to call it a performance improvement plan. That right there, just the title of this document, is telling the employee, and it's telling Texas Workforce Commission, that I'm putting a plan in place to save your job. You are important to me, all right? And we're going to work through this plan, rather than I'm just going to write you up, all right? So I think that's pretty important right there. So you can see in the sample we have today's date, you know, the employee's name, the employee's position, your name, your position, and then what behavior needs to be improved, all right? Now this is pretty important right here, and this is also going to be one of your worksheet questions, by the way. Anytime you have an employee that has multiple behaviors that need to be addressed, all right? So in the example that you'll see with the sample performance improvement plan on our website, this particular employee is having an issue with interactions in the classroom. But let's say, for example, she's also having dress code issues. And maybe she's also having some attendance issues. She's late for work quite a bit, all right? So we have 3 different behaviors that we need to address with this employee. You want to address one behavior at a time, all right? So when you create a performance improvement plan, you're going to address one behavior at a time. Do not address multiple behaviors in one plan, all right? The employee could come back and say that you were basically, you know, building this up to where it was so much there's no way they could be successful, all right? You want to make sure you address one behavior at a time. Now, that doesn't mean that I let the other behaviors go unnoticed. It might go like this. I'm going to sit down with this employee. We're going to go over our performance improvement plan on interactions in the classroom. We're going to discuss everything that's on the plan. They're going to agree to the plan. They're going to sign off on it. I'm going to flip the piece of paper over, and I'm going to say, hang on, don't get up. And I'm going to pull the next one out. Now we need to talk about dress code. All right? We're going to go over the performance improvement plan on dress code. We're going to talk about the expectations. We're going to talk about what's not being met. All right? They're going to agree to the plan, sign off on it. Flip that paper over, hang on, don't get up. You know, now we need to talk about attendance or whatever it may be. But you want to have one conversation at a time. Now, in this scenario, let's say, for example, we're talking about, we had our conversation about interactions in the classroom, okay, finished that conversation, and we moved on to dress code. And now we're talking about dress code expectations. And in the middle of that conversation, the employee goes, well, hang on just a second. I want to go back and I want to talk about, you know, interactions again. Nope. That conversation is done. All right. We have completed that conversation. We're now talking about dress code. All right. You have to be a very strong leader, and you have to be an assertive leader, and you've got to make sure that you keep them on track. We're going to have one conversation at a time. All right. And let them know this conversation is over. We're now going to move on to the next topic, all right? And don't let them bounce back and forth. You got to be in control right here. The other thing that I really want y'all to be aware of, and again, this takes practice, all right? This takes a lot of practice, but you can do it. You can do it. I'll give you an example. One time, I had an employee that was not meeting expectations, and one of my directors pulled her into the office and, hey, we need to discuss a performance improvement plan. Well, first off, this employee was like, well, I'm not going to have this conversation unless Tim is here. I'm not going to talk about this with you. So, mistake number one is that, my director at that time should have said, I'm your boss and we're going to talk about this, all right? But instead she said, okay, I'll call Tim, and she sent the teacher back to the classroom. That was mistake number two. What she should have done, if she wanted me there present, she should have said, okay, we're going to suspend your employment until we're able to meet with, Tim, the owner, all right? She should have sent her home and suspended her rather than sending her back to the classroom. But that's what she did, all right? So 2 mistakes now. So I go over there. I was actually close by, and I immediately went over to the school. We pull the teacher into the classroom, and she comes in with all of these folded up pieces of construction paper, and she's all crying and everything, and I'm like, hey, we need to talk about your performance. Oh, but Mr. Tim, before we get there, I need to talk to you about the playground. We're having some supervision issues out on the playground, and I'm so afraid that the kids are going to get hurt, and no one's watching the kids. And then also, and she has all these folded up pieces of construction paper that she wants to talk about, and I had to say, stop. All right. I need you to stop. Whatever it is that you have written down on this construction paper that I purchased for the children, and I did say that, I will be more than happy to come out to the school next Tuesday, and I'll be more than happy to talk to you next Tuesday about whatever it is you have written down on this construction paper. But today, I'm here to talk about you, and we're here to talk about your performance. But Mr. Tim, no. Today we're here to talk about you. All right? So put that away. We'll talk about that next Tuesday or whatever. But you got to be ready, because they are very good at trying to distract the conversation. They want to deflect the attention off of them and onto someone else. All right? Another example, I just was involved in a situation where the employee was, well, I want to know what's happening to everyone else. Why isn't this teacher in trouble? Why isn't this other teacher, in this office? It's none of your business. All right? We're here to talk about you and your performance. Okay? I am not here to talk about other people's performance, nor will I talk about other employees' performance. The only person that I can discuss performance with is you, all right? So what's happening to other employees in this building? None of your business, all right? Just like after we get done with this conversation, I'm not going to go around the school telling everyone about what's happening right here, all right? You wouldn't be too happy about that, would you? So we're going to talk about your performance and your performance only, all right? Don't bring up any other employee. So you've got to be pretty assertive with that, all right? Don't go down that rabbit hole, because they are very, very good at wanting to bring up what other people are doing. We're here to talk about you, all right? So going back to the sample performance improvement plan, and again, those of you that are just joining us, you can download this off of my website, timthetrainer.com, under documents, but that's okay. You don't need it right now unless you just want to get it. The very first thing I'm going to list out on my performance improvement plan are previous conversations or actions, all right? So in the example that I'm giving, you can see here that, on September 6th, I had to step into the classroom and tell the employee to lower her voice. On October 13th, we had to just have a conversation with the employee about the importance of speaking to children at eye level, all right? On December 12th, we had to have a conversation with the employee about her body language and how important body language is, in the classroom. Now, these are previous conversations or actions, all right, that we've had related to this particular behavior that's not being met. Now, remember earlier I told you, if it's not written down, it didn't happen. So these previous conversations or actions, you want to make sure that you've got documentation of this, all right? So that's where I have what I call my staff communication form, all right? It's a very, very simple little document, staff communication form, and again, you can download this off of my website. You can create your own. It's very, very simple. But basically, anytime I have to have a conversation with an employee, we're going to document this on a staff communication form. Now, I make sure that the employees know that a staff communication form is not a form of disciplinary action, all right? This is not a write-up. A staff communication form, we are simply documenting that we had this conversation. And you can see on the sample staff communication form, description of the concern, what actions were taken, there is an opportunity for the employee to respond, and then signatures, all right? And so with my sample performance improvement plan, where it talks about previous conversations or actions, and I had to go in and ask her to lower her voice. I had to go in and talk to her about speaking at eye level. I had to go in and talk to her about body language. I'm going to attach my staff communication forms right here, all right? So that employee is aware that we did have these previous conversations. I have another document that is very, very similar to this one that's called a parent concern form. It's almost identical. The only thing that's different is the title. But that is anytime a parent comes to me with a concern. Once again, if it's not written down, it didn't happen. So we're going to document parent concerns or parent complaints on a parent concern form, all right? And again, there's an opportunity for the employee to sign it, the parent to sign it, and the leader to sign it. It may be when we talk about previous conversations or actions, I may attach a parent concern form here in addition to the staff communication forms, all right? But what we're trying to accomplish is that there is documentation that these conversations have happened in the past, all right? Now, the next part of the performance improvement plan is so incredibly important. Please, please, please make sure that you are doing this, okay? But I'm going to list out what are the expectations of the employee. And you can see in the sample that I've provided for you, expectations of the employee per the employee handbook, page 27. Okay, or whatever page number it is. And I'm going to basically list out exactly what's in that that employee handbook on what are these expectations. And it might be, I say, expectations of the employee per the job description. All right, so either employee handbook or job description. And this is another worksheet question here as well. Now, the reason why this is so important that I refer to the employee handbook or the job description, and you're going to attach right here the acknowledgement that the employee has received the employee handbook, they've read it, they've had the opportunity to ask questions, they understand it, they agree to follow it. Same thing with the job description. They've received it, they've read it, they've had the opportunity to ask questions, they understand it, and they agree to follow it. So I'm going to attach that document here. The reason why this is so important is that you need to be able to show that the employee was aware of the expectations. Sometimes we see unemployment claims where the employee says, my boss told me I wasn't doing my job, but no one ever told me I had to talk to the kids at eye level. No one ever told me I had to supervise them at all times, or whatever the rebuttal may be. Well, when I list out what are the expectations of the employee per the employee handbook or per the job description, and I attach their acknowledgement, they can't come back and say no one ever told me I was supposed to be doing this. All right? And when you're having these conversations with them, they need those gentle reminders. All right? You were fully aware of these expectations, and here's where you sign the acknowledgement. All right? So that's critical right there, that you have documentation that they were aware of these expectations. All right? Now, the next part you may think is a little repetitive, but it's pretty important. All right? What expectations are not being met? And I'm going to go ahead and list out, what expectations are not being met. Because, when you look at what are the expectations of the employee and then what expectations are not being met, she might be doing some, but not all. All right? She might be meeting some of the expectations, and we want to give credit for that. All right? But she's not meeting all of the expectations. It's kind of like the sandwich method that we've used for years and years and years. You start with something positive, you address the issue, you end with something positive. All right, so let's give her some credit for what she is meeting, address what needs to be corrected, and then move on to something else that's positive there at the end. Now, the next part of the performance improvement plan is the most important part of this plan. All right, so hocus pocus, time to focus. But this is the most important part of the plan. What are you going to do to help this employee improve their performance? All right, so what are you going to do to help them? So you can see in the example that, I'm going to sign the employee up for an online for a training on positive interactions in the classroom. I'm going to register the employee for an online course on appropriate interactions in the classroom. I'm going to assign a role model that's going to work with the employee 2 times a week for 2 hours a day to role model appropriate interactions. And then last, I'm going to meet with the employee every Friday at 4 p.m. to discuss their improvements or lack of improvements. And that is critical too. Now, the reason why this is so important, all right, and again, this is a worksheet question, so I want y'all to be thinking about this. Another reason why this is so important is that, sometimes employees will file an unemployment claim and they'll say, well, my boss told me to improve, but no one ever showed me how. All right? My boss told me I needed to be better, but no one ever gave me direction on how to be better. All right? So it's very, very important that you're able to prove that you made every effort to try to help them be better, to be able to help them meet expectations. All right? So that's why we're going to list out what we're going to do to help the employee be successful. The other thing that, again, Texas Workforce Commission is going to be looking for is that, did the employee, did they know that their job was in jeopardy? Did the employee know where they stood? All right? And that's why we're going to meet with the employee every, example, we're going to meet with her every Friday at 4 p.m. to discuss improvements or lack of improvements. And you're going to pick a time that's best for you and that employee. But I do encourage that you meet with them at least once a week. Anytime you have an employee on a performance plan, you need to have a lot of communication with them. They need to know exactly where they're at. All right? Am I improving or am I not improving? Am I getting worse? All right? They need to know exactly where they stand. Now, there's a little secret right here. All right? Y'all want to hear the little secret? It's really not a secret. Our goal here is to save their employment. Our goal is for them to be better and meet expectations and to continue to have a very long relationship with us. That's the goal. But y'all know as well as I do, sometimes that doesn't happen. And sometimes we do end up having to terminate this employee because they did not improve their behavior. When you clearly outline what are the expectations, you set them up for success by helping them improve. And you're meeting with them weekly to let them know, where they're at. Are they getting better or are they not getting better? If they're not getting any better and they know they're not getting any better, they're most likely to quit. All right? And it's better for them to resign than it is for you to have to terminate them. And when you write a plan like this and you fully execute this plan, all right, if they're not able to improve, they're most likely to go ahead and resign. That is much better for you and your business. All right, but the goal is for them to get better. Now, you're also gonna let them know when is their follow-up. So you can see here in the example that I'm giving you, we're going to follow up with you on March 4th at 4 p.m. To discuss the outcome of this performance improvement plan. And let them know what's going to happen, all right? If you do not meet the expectations by March 4th, then further action may be taken, including termination of employment, all right, or whatever the next step may be. Get your calendar out, all right? Don't just go, 30 days from today or 90 days from today and come up with a date, because that might be a Saturday or Sunday. That might be picture day and you got a lot of chaos in your center. Get your calendar out and make sure that your follow-up date is a good date for you, all right? I see this happen a lot, that directors don't look at the follow-up date and, it's a Friday or it's a Saturday or Sunday or something's going on in the center and probably not the best day for you to do a follow-up. So take a look at that. Now, a good question that I get from people, how do I determine if I'm going to do a 30-day, a 60-day, a 90-day, a 120-day plan? How long do I put them on a performance improvement plan? Well, there's two things that you've got to look at here, all right? Number one, you want to look at how severe is the behavior. So, for example, anything that is related to supervision or health and safety, or anything that's related to standards and regulations, you need to have them on a very short leash. All right, you've got 30 days to correct this behavior. This is serious stuff. All right, I cannot give you 120 days to correct a supervision concern. All right, you got to fix that fast. All right. So, anything that's related to supervision, health or safety or regulations, probably going to be a 30-day plan. They got to correct this and they got to correct it fast. Any behavior that is related, any behavior that is a habit, all right? A behavior that is due to a habit, or you see a pattern, all right, in this behavior, you're probably going to do a much longer plan there. So, for example, anytime I do a performance improvement plan on attendance, all right, so you have someone that is tardy, you have someone that is calling in a lot, we're probably going to do a 90-day plan on that one. I need you to break the habit, all right? If I just do a 30-day plan on attendance, anyone can go 4 weeks and get to work on time and come to work every day for 4 weeks, all right? And as soon as that 30 days is up, they're going to go right back into their habit. I need to break the habit. So we're going to probably do like a 90-day plan right there. Any of y'all that may be in a position where you supervise leaders, all right? So you supervise the director or the assistant director. Anything that has to do with the overall performance of the school, so financial results, enrollment, retention, those type of topics, I'll typically do a 120-day plan, all right? Because turning your reputation around, reducing kids that are leaving your program, retention, building your enrollment, increasing your finances, that's going to take time. You can't do that in 30 days. So that's what you've got to look at. The other thing that you've got to look at when deciding, am I going to do a 30-day plan, a 60-day plan, or a 90-day plan, is you want to look at how long would it take the average employee to correct this behavior? All right? So how long would it take the average employee to correct this behavior? That's what you've got to look at right there. All right? Another reason, I got a couple of other things I want to add to all of this. Another reason why, implementing a performance improvement plan that sets your people up for success, another reason why this is so important is that the United States Department of Labor has reported that anytime you hire a new employee, it costs your business an average of about $7,000. It's a little over $7,000 is what they reported. So anytime you hire a new employee, it costs your business a little over $7,000. That's a worksheet question, by the way. By the time you recruit them, interview them, hire them, pay for their fingerprint, pay for their CPR, you orientate them, you coach them, you set them up for success. Your time is valuable. You need to put a dollar sign on your time. All right? Your time is money. Your time, that employee's time, and the amount of money that you pay in unemployment taxes. You pay your tax rate on the first $9,000 of that employee's salary. After you've paid unemployment taxes on the first $9,000 of their salary, you're done for the year. But if they quit or you have to fire them and then you hire a new employee, okay, you start all over on paying those unemployment taxes. And then they work for 3 or 4 months and then they quit or you have to fire them and you hire another one. And you start paying unemployment taxes all over again. So the point I'm making here is that turnover costs a lot of money. Okay? It costs more money than a lot of people realize. So making sure that you are setting your employees up for success, not only is that important for the consistency of the classroom, making sure that children have the consistent caregiver, but financially it affects your bottom line. All right? So that's why I love these performance improvement plans so much, and they're very, very effective, all right, so that we can retain our employees and then get them set up for success, all right. Another document that I wanted to make sure that I shared with you today in our webinar is a document that I call my professional development worksheet. And again, you can download this off of my website. It's a very simple form. Anytime you send your employees to a training or you have them do a training, you're going to have them document, the date that they attended the training, what was the topic, what did they learn, how are they going to apply what they learned in this training to their classroom, how does it complement your employee handbook, how does it complement the child care minimum standards, and you're going to have them sign and date this. This is an amazing document, okay? Texas Workforce Commission loves this document. Child care licensing loves this document. The reason why this one is so important is, once again, sometimes when we have to terminate an employee, they go and they file for unemployment, they come back and say, well, I was never properly trained to do my job. All right, no one ever trained me on how to properly supervise a group of 2-year-olds, no one ever properly trained me on, interactions in the classroom. And when they say that, you're going to be able to come back and go, oh, really now? And you're going to pull out that professional development worksheet, and here it is in your handwriting where you attended this training on supervision, and in your handwriting you wrote down what you learned and how you're going to apply it to your classroom. How does it relate to our employee handbook or the expectations? How does it relate to the child care minimum standards? Boom, you just won that unemployment claim. All right, they're not going to be able to come back and say, no one ever trained me. So whenever I'm doing a performance improvement plan, when I'm talking about what are the expectations of the employee, and I'm going to list out what is in the employee handbook, I'm going to list out what is in the job description, I'm also going to attach here their professional development worksheets where they have been properly trained on this behavior. Okay? You know, those of you that have done online trainings on my website, timthetrainer.com, y'all know that, you know, you complete a worksheet with answers, and then, you know, I always tell you to attach a copy of those worksheets to the certificate. Now, that's not only for child care licensing's purpose, all right? That's important that you have those online worksheets for that certificate for child care licensing, but that's not the only reason why I do this, all right? It's also important when it comes to performance, all right, and employee performance. And if they do file an unemployment claim, those certificates with those worksheets where they answered these questions is very, very critical in your unemployment claim response, all right? So, you know, when you're doing those online trainings, make sure that you're printing out those worksheets. That is so important for you right there, all right? There you go. Now, like I said, the ultimate goal is to set them up for success, give them the tools that they need, fill that bag of skills, all right? We want to fill that bag of skills so that they will be successful. Unfortunately, there are times that your employees may have a particular behavior that is grounds for immediate termination, meaning there is no opportunity to do a performance improvement plan, all right? You want to make sure that you clearly outline what are these behaviors, all right? What is something that you may do that's going to get you immediately terminated? You want to make sure that this is outlined in your employee handbook, and I recommend at least once a year you go over this in a staff meeting, that certain behaviors you don't get a warning, all right? You don't get a performance improvement plan, you're terminated immediately. Some examples of grounds for immediate termination: anytime a child is placed at risk, all right? So leaving a child unsupervised, leaving a child on the playground, leaving a child alone in a classroom, leaving a child alone on a bus, all right? Those are all grounds for immediate termination, okay? You get no warning on those. Insubordination, all right? An employee refusing their job assignment, that is grounds for immediate termination. We tend to have a lot of issues with this here lately for some reason. People that want to refuse their job assignments. You don't get to do that, all right? You either accept your job assignment or you go somewhere else. It's really simple. Employees that refuse to sign documents, all right? Anytime you ask an employee to sign a document, if they refuse to sign it, that's insubordination, all right? So you either sign it or you don't work here, all right? We see a lot of terminations with insubordination, all right? And I will tell you, you can win these unemployment claims all the time. I got a question on Facebook Live, very good question right here from Chrissy. How do we prove this, all right? Anytime you have a conversation with an employee regarding their performance, you always want to have a witness, all right? Never have these conversations by yourself. And the witness needs to be a non-biased person, all right? So it cannot be one of their co-workers or their peers. It needs to be a non-biased person. So it could be like an assistant director, an owner, an administrator, a board member, if that's your situation. But it just can't be one of their peers, all right? And your witness needs to be trained to be a non-participant. They are a silent party. All the witness does is they sit there and take notes. They do not participate in the conversation. Even if they are asked a direct question, they do not participate. That's so important right there. You don't want the employee to come back and say, I was ganged up on, all right? So the employee doesn't, the witness does not participate. They just sit there and take notes. Now, another great way of proving this these days is cameras, all right? Now, I'm a big advocate for cameras in your program. That is for your surveillance only. I'm not a fan of parents having access to your cameras, all right? But they are for your surveillance and your purpose only. And if you can get cameras with sound, that's even better. Y'all check out on my website. PB&J TV is one of my sponsors. So if you go to my website, timthetrainer.com, and you click on sponsors, you will see PB&J TV. And they are a company that focuses on surveillance and cameras and licensed child care centers. That's who we use at our schools, and I love it. But I have been able to use the camera footage with sound in cases like this quite often. We had a situation one time, kind of off subject here, where a parent claimed that they were not given an accident report. All right, and they told Child Care Licensing that they were never given an accident report and they were never notified of a child getting hurt in the program. Well, at this particular center, we were able to pull the camera footage, and right there on video with sound, we have video footage of the teacher giving the parent the accident report and the parent refusing to sign it and basically slapping it out of the teacher's hand and saying, I'm not signing that. And we got the video footage of the teacher telling the parent. We also have the video footage of the director making phone calls to the parent to tell them about the accident. So it was beautiful in that situation that we had that camera footage. But in a case where an employee is refusing to sign a document, either a witness that you have present or your camera footage is golden. One of the best decisions that I've made in many years is that we did install cameras with sound in our director's office. And it's not to catch the directors doing something, it's to help the directors, so that when we're having these difficult conversations with employees or difficult conversations with parents, we've got it's all being videotaped. And it's outlined in our parent handbook and our employee handbook that these cameras are present, but that has been very helpful. All right. Other reasons, I just want to go over some other reasons for immediate termination, because this is a worksheet question too. Leaving a child or placing a child at risk, insubordination, arriving to work intoxicated or under the influence of an illegal drug, of course, using a cell phone or electronic device for personal use. For me, that's grounds for immediate termination. I don't give warnings, all right? When you read the employee handbook, that's your warning. And y'all, I'm strict on that because this rule that we've had about personal use of electronic devices, we've had this rule going on 11 years now. We should have this down, all right? That it is so frustrating that this is probably still the #1 reason why we terminate employees is cell phone use. And you would think after 11 years of having this rule, we should have this down, but it's still happening quite often. I do have in my list of grounds for immediate termination receiving a traffic violation while driving a company vehicle. Otherwise, your employees that are driving your buses and your vans, if they get pulled over and they get a ticket, that's not good marketing, all right? And we can go back to placing a child at risk, especially if they're speeding or they run a stoplight or something right there. Being aggressive or being unprofessional with a customer, anything perceived as sexual harassment, that's grounds for immediate termination. Violating our confidentiality agreement, that one is huge right now, all right? People's privacy is a hot topic. and an employee who is violating that and they are disclosing confidential information about a child, their parent, or other employees, that's a big no-no. So they got to go in that case right there. Anything perceived as discrimination, so you're treating someone differently based on their protected class, that is another big no-no. We have a 10 at 10 workshop coming up soon on understanding protected classes, so mark your calendars for that one. And y'all, I do have in my list of grounds for immediate termination gossiping or any employee starting drama in the workplace. I got very, very little tolerance for that right there too, all right? And then of course, threatening another employee is grounds for immediate termination. But again, you're gonna go over this upon hire, and you're gonna go over this at least once a year in a staff meeting so they know that, you know, if they do any of these behaviors, there is no performance improvement plan, you're out of here. I had an employee, this has been in a previous life when I was a district manager for a large childcare company. I was visiting one of my schools one day, and I walked into a pre-K classroom. The children were in the cafeteria having lunch. This particular school had a cafeteria, so the classroom was empty, lights off, door closed. And while I was in there looking at the classroom with the director, we found a child asleep on a mat. All right, so obviously this child was left alone in the classroom, unsupervised, with the lights off and the door closed. Not a good situation. So we get the kid, go out there, get the teacher, we have the cook watch the class, you know, and I'm like, hey, I need to talk to you, teacher. She's like, oh, Mr. Tim, how's it going? Well, not good. She goes, well, what's up? And I said, well, did you know that you had a child in your classroom sleeping on a mat all by herself with the lights off and the door closed, you know? And she goes, oh yeah, she wasn't feeling well, so I told her to lay down and just yell at me if she needs me. You know, blood pressure's going up, and I'm like, all right, so would you agree that that child was left alone in a classroom and unsupervised? Oh, I told her to yell at me if she needed me. Would you agree that that child was left alone in the classroom and unsupervised? And she said, well, yeah, you're right. I did leave her alone in the classroom and she wasn't supervised. I said, okay. What does the employee handbook say will happen if you leave a child alone in a classroom and unsupervised? And she says, I think it says I get fired. All right, come with me. You know, took her to the office, pulled out a blank form, today's date, time, employee's name, you know, at 11:32, you know, child left alone in a classroom, unsupervised, per page 32 of the employee handbook, grounds for immediate termination. All right, I'm terminating your employment effective immediately. This decision is final. Sign here, you got to go. And seriously, folks, the whole situation happened that fast. All right. Now, when we talk about, you know, Texas Workforce Commission and unemployment claims, all right, did the employee know what the expectation was? You know, yes. All right. Did she know that her job was in jeopardy? Yeah. I asked her, what does the employee handbook say will happen if you leave a child unsupervised? She answered the question. I think I get fired. Ding, 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 you got it, all right? So she knew exactly what the expectation was, and she knew exactly what the outcome was. Easy breezy unemployment case, all right? Not an easy breezy licensing case, all right? Obviously, we had to report this to licensing, we had to report it to the parent. You know, the company that I worked for at the time, we had just purchased this school, so we were still in our initial permit stage. It wasn't pretty. It was a bad situation, but we dealt with it and we got through it, all right? But the point behind that story is that she knew what the expectation was and she knew what the outcome was, all right? So there you go. That is some information on how to create and implement a performance improvement plan. Now again, the ultimate goal is to not have to do these very often, but when you do have to deliver a performance improvement plan, remember your goal is to set them up for success and to help them. And when you use the example that I gave you as a format, all right, so you've documented your previous conversations or actions, you tell them what the expectations are, you tell them where they have seen these expectations before, all right, let them know what they're meeting, and then you list out what you're going to do to help that employee improve, all right. Give them a follow-up date, let them know how long they have to correct this behavior. Make sure that you're meeting with them weekly to discuss improvements or lack of improvements. Remember, you're on their side. You're here to help them. You're not trying to get rid of them. You're there to help them get better. All right? And the last thing I want to say on this particular topic, okay? When you have an employee that is successful, you have to put them on a performance improvement plan and they are successful. Once the plan is completed, have a meeting with them. Let them know you have successfully completed your performance improvement plan. And I am very, very proud of you. You handled this professionally, all right? You handled this with integrity. And I am very, very satisfied with the way, this situation turned out. Let them know that you're proud of them and how well they did. And then once you take them off of the plan and they're done with it, it's water under the bridge, okay? Let it go. Don't hang this issue over their head for the rest of their career. We all make mistakes. Every single one of us, our performance slips from time to time, all right? So acknowledge their success and then let it go. And that's my best piece of advice for you on that one. All right, great. Hey, just a couple of reminders before I let y'all go and finish up your Wednesday. We do have our Director 2.0 class coming up. Those of you that have attended my original Director Credential course, the 4-day class, we have an advanced course coming up November 17th through the 19th, and you can either take that in person or virtually. Information is on my website under Director 2.0. We also have a Director Credential course coming up November 30th through December 3rd. I had a lot of people that called and emailed me and asked for one more Director Credential course before the end of the year. And so I went ahead and scheduled an additional 4-day class November 30th through December 3rd. So check that out on my website. We also have our Director Workshop and Teacher Workshop that I added for November 20th and November 21st. And both of those are going to be over the child care minimum standards. One from a director's perspective and one for caregivers, all right? So check that out on my website as well. One other event that I wanted to tell you all about is the Association for Early Learning Leaders. We have what is called a LEAD Symposium, L-E-A-D. A LEAD Symposium coming up on November 13th and 14th. That will be virtual, and it will be me and Lori Buxton and Lynette Galante. The three of us will be doing the Association for Early Learning Leaders LEAD event. For more information on that, you can go to earlylearningleaders.org. And then I've also posted some things on Facebook about it. But I would love for y'all to participate in the LEAD event. It's pretty awesome, all right? Also, remember that I know that we are still dealing with this pandemic. I know that we are all so ready for this to be over with. Don't know when it's going to be over with. But we do have 2 training cruises scheduled. We have one in January, and we also have our director's cruise scheduled for April. And we are planning to move forward with those. As of right now, they are on, all right? So if you want more information on our training cruises, go to our website or give the office a call, and Leslie will be more than happy to talk to you about our training cruises. All right. I hope this information was helpful to everyone today. It's such an important topic. We want to make sure that we set our people up for success. We want long-term employees. We want to reduce turnover in our programs, and we can do it. All right, we can do it. Everyone have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday, and I will talk to all of you again very, very soon. Thanks a lot for participating today.